I'm back again on your screen with new content. I'm excited. I hope you are. So, you know how you sometimes walk through town and you see foods that are being sold on the market? Today, I just thought we could discuss some wild foods that you may have seen out there. And you're wondering, are these nutritious? Or maybe you've never even asked yourself this question. And these are makole, intumbulwa, intungulu, masau. I know there are many others, but we'll focus on these because I think they are more abundant this time of the year. So, you know how I have from time to time talked a lot about type 2 diabetes, obesity, and calories and this kind of thing, but I think we haven't delved much on micronutrients. I would like for us to discuss micronutrients in the context of chronic diseases. I know when it comes to type 2 diabetes, we've talked a lot about sugar. Let's look at it now in the context of micronutrients. So it is one thing to control conditions like type 2 diabetes or even prevent them by reducing sugar intake or ensuring a slower release of sugar in your bloodstream. But we don't also talk about the micronutrients and other compounds that are found in food that can aid in this action. Of course, when we talk of micronutrients, I hope everybody understands what I mean. These are nutrients that are needed in small quantities, but they perform massive roles in our bodies. And for example, vitamin C, iron, zinc, calcium, all those are what we call micronutrients. The macros will be your protein, carbohydrates, and fats, but the micros are these small minerals and vitamins that perform powerful functions. And when we talk of plant-based micronutrients, usually even scientifically, they are frowned upon, saying they're inferior because they cannot provide the necessary amounts, or they have a low bioavailability, meaning they cannot be absorbed fully. And that is true. It's not a lie. Like zinc, calcium coming from plants, a plant food can have a lot of calcium, but poor bioavailability, meaning the calcium content is maybe 100% or 150% and more, but then what is absorbed is only, let's say, 5-10%. And so that's why they would say, no, focus more on animal source foods because you are guaranteed good absorption with animal source foods. We're talking 90% or 100% absorption of micronutrients. But other than just the traditional micronutrients like vitamin C, iron, zinc, and so forth, we also have what we call other substances or compounds that are found in foods like flavonoids, phenolic compounds, polyphenols. We can go on and on. These are compounds that perform massive antioxidant roles in the body. And so they are only found in plant foods and predominantly also fruits as well, wild fruits in this context. So I want us to really narrow it down to wild fruits. And I'll explain why, okay? These polyphenols and flavonoids that I've mentioned that are excellent sources of antioxidants, but also that they perform other functions, for example, reducing of inflammation. And from our data, we are beginning to see that a lot of us suffer from high levels of inflammation. From the information as well that we have about the country, we are seeing that micronutrient deficiencies are becoming more and more of a concern. Just look at this chart that is just showing you the levels of some key micronutrient deficiencies in Zambia. It is a public health concern and worth talking about, but today I want us to focus on these wild foods that I have mentioned. Firstly, information is showing us that the Zambian population does not consume sufficient amounts of fruits. But that's only because when we mention fruits in this country, we limit ourselves to the exotic fruits. Apples, oranges, bananas, najis, and the exotic ones. Those are the ones we call fruits. These ones that I've mentioned, masau, intumbulwa, intungulu, we don't consider them as fruits, even when some of us do consume them and consume them abundantly, but they are. And I want us to begin to see them that way. Just look at this chart that I've put together here. Look at how comparable the nutrients in these fruits are to the exotic fruits that you are familiar with. So, can we say that these are expensive compared to your exotic fruits? They are relatively affordable to many of us. So I want you to see that the increase in non-communicable diseases like cancer, like type 2 diabetes, like stroke, heart disease, is not necessarily because maybe people are becoming obese, is not necessarily because of poor sugar consumption, or rather poor consumption of carbohydrates. I know that plays a role, and probably a major role, but also is because of micronutrient deficiencies. We talk about micronutrient deficiencies as if it's a by the way. Like we focus more on undernutrition in terms of, oh, people are not, especially children, are not eating enough in terms of quantity, or we are not eating enough in terms of animal source foods. But we forget that there are specific or special compounds in plant foods that can help control these conditions, like type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and so forth. And these are phenolic compounds, polyphenols, flavonoids, to mention a few, phytochemicals that help to reduce inflammation, improve cognitive development as well. We are beginning to see a lot of cognitive problems, even in young children. We are also beginning to see a lot of inflammation. And one good sign of high levels of inflammation is that we have a B vitamin deficiency in the country, at least from the data that has been produced so far. So I want you to see that linkage. The micronutrient deficiency situation or status in the country, and the rising levels of non-communicable diseases, which we are blaming mainly sedentary lifestyle, sugar, high levels of sugar in beverages and food, or portions of carbohydrates that we consume, and all that. But we are not really looking at the other compounds that are found in food. I know there is also limited data on the nutritional benefits of these foods, partly because I think it's our mindset. We think they are inferior, and so we haven't done much research in this area. So researchers out there, and I would also challenge nutrition students and dietetic students out there who are looking for what to research on. I think looking at the nutritional value of our wild foods will be beneficial to improve our database in this area. But at least from what we know, foods like makole, did you know that makole are a good source of essential amino acids? The reason why we call them essential is because the body does not develop them. You have to get them from food. There are so many, about over 20 kinds of amino acids. And out of these 20, by the way, 9 of them are what we call essential amino acids. And makole gives you 8 of the 9, which can help in the prevention of protein energy malnutrition. Next fruit is intumbulwa, or also known as governor's plum. So intumbulwa is excellent in phenolic compounds that help with the reduction of inflammation, improving cognitive development, in also cleaning up the body. Think about it this way: products of metabolism. When you've eaten your food, it's broken down, the body has taken what it needs or what is useful. Where does that waste product go? Apart from the waste that you excrete through number 2, there are also other wastes that remain in the body that require to be mopped up, through in your bloodstream, cells as well. All those need to be cleaned up. So you need those brooms and workers or cleaners, and phenolic compounds are one of those. So reducing of free radicals that, if left roaming around in your body, can become cancerous. So phenolic compounds are excellent in that kind of job. And so intumbulwa provides that. Flavonoids are also compounds that are found in plant foods that clean up the body, reduce inflammation, improve cognitive performance, and so many other functions. So masao are another great source of vitamin C, like many, many other fruits out there. It's just that when I ask even a child, tell me a vitamin C rich food, oftentimes we'll say lemons, oranges, and that's it. But let's also ensure that we consume these wild fruits that are currently on the market. We produce a lot of food, Africa as a whole. We are good producers of raw stuff. We talk a lot about value addition as if it's the next person that should do it. But how are we adding value to these foods? And when I say these foods, I'm really looking at the wild foods that we are discussing here today. Let's share, let's bounce ideas off of each other, because the more we continue thinking that value addition should be done by, I don't know, some manufacturer out there, or we need funding for it, we will really not go anywhere. It's high time that we started to ask ourselves, how do we add value to these foods? Because for us to ensure that we have the benefits that we've discussed here today, we have to also create a system where a variety of foods are available all year round. It shouldn't just be this June, July, August period that we have in Tumbulwa. How do we ensure that Intumbulwa will still be available in December? How do we ensure that Makole will still be available, come March next year? All that requires value addition, right? Processing, correct processing, by the way, not just processing for the sake of processing, but processing, correct preservation, correct storage methods. What can we do with these foods? I think is a challenge that I pose to myself, but also to you out there. Let's discuss in the comments. Imagine making jam using intumbulwa. So what can we do, or what have you done out there? Can you share what you're doing in your households to add value to these foods and also extend them? And this is really also my call to colleagues in the culinary field to also give us or share ideas on how we can add value. Because trust me, poverty and malnutrition will not be combated using just raw products. So with that said, I hope that information was useful. So in a nutshell, this was just me trying to connect NCDs with the high levels of micronutrient deficiencies, not just sugar and obesity and high calorie diets and so forth, but really looking at, is there a link between the high or rising levels of NCDs and micronutrient deficiencies? So micronutrient deficiencies is not just a by the way. So they are products or micronutrients out there. They are compounds that can fight non-communicable diseases that I feel we are not taking seriously. In a nutshell, remember, these are terminologies that are new to you, remember that these wild foods that you bypass on the streets contain flavonoids, contain phenolic compounds, contain phytochemicals and polyphenols that help to combat non-communicable diseases and keep them at bay. So please, please, there is no reason why you should be moving around with high sugar levels, high risk of cancer, and so on and so forth. Consume these foods, utilize them in many other ways possible, and see how together we can reduce these conditions. All right, so until next time, is bye.